We're back. It's a new season. It's the No Nay Never podcast. Hello and welcome back to the start of a brand new season of the No Nay Never podcast. Season 7, guys. Time doesn't half fly when you are having fun. I hope you all enjoyed the very brief summer, the very short break away from what ended up being the last 9 games of the 2019-2020 Premier League season, culminating in quite a safe position for Burnley in the end, with a really decent end-of-season run, a very short summer break, and then straight back into, of course, the 2020-2021 Premier League season, however that may play out. Joining you for a brand new season, as ever, is myself, your regular host, Natalie Bromley, and joining me this week for this very special preview show / summary of last season are my colleagues Tom Whitaker and Richard Steele. Tom, Richard, welcome back.
Cheers, Natalie. It's nice to be back, isn't it? It feels like we were never away.
It very much does. It very much does. It was a very short summer, albeit quite sweet, and I don't think any of us have really managed to get ourselves organised and ready for the new season. But we are where we are. And one thing we will come on to talk about in a moment, of course, is the fact that none of the fans are yet back in the stadium yet. So we're definitely feeling a little bit, shall we say, remote from our football club at the moment. But let's not be deterred, because of course we are all still Burnley fans through and through, and we need to get on with things. We need to get back out there. We need to get back into a podcast and get some regular episodes going and get our support behind the boys. And that is, of course, what your No Nay Never team is here for. So we're going to start this week by having a very quick recap on where the season finished last year, where we ended up, what we thought we did well, and essentially how we felt the season went overall. We're then going to have a look at some of your end of season awards. We put a poll out in the field. I sound like I'm some American political consultant. We put a survey out to you guys at the end of the season, just to have a quick look at what your slightly off the wall end of season awards were. So we're going to have a look at the results of that and see what you made of it all. We're going to talk about the transfer window and how Burnley's summer activity has been. We've allocated about 46 seconds for that, so I think that should probably cover it. And then we're going to have a look forward to next season and what our hopes, dreams, and probably realistic expectations are going to be. So let's start where we finished, essentially, and that is the back end of last season. And Tom, we'll come to you first. 10th in the Premier League in the end. That was the end of our 4th consecutive season in the Premier League. 54 points, which was equal to the best points target we've had so far. And it secured us a 5th consecutive season in the Premier League. Now, if you think back to the summer of last year and looking into this 4th season, did you expect survival? Did you expect us to hit the heart? I guess, where did our finishing position reflect what your expectations of the season were?
I think I like to think of myself, maybe not a pessimist, but a bit of a realist. I know we've been in the league for a while now, but I'm still more than happy to come 17th every year. Sure, we'll come on to the transfer outlay and things like that later. But with the money we spend, the budget we've got compared to other teams in the league, staying up is a good season for us. And I would have been more than happy to have finished roughly where we did the season before. I think we came 15th in the end, something like that, comfortably above water without too many problems, and perhaps maybe with slightly better first half of the season. So I think to finish where we did and to get the points tally that we did was a really fantastic achievement. I think a lot of it was down to perhaps having that bit more fitness than other teams, adjusting to the restart a lot better than other teams. I think we only lost the 2 games after the restart, and we were just so good at grinding out those little tight games, nicking a goal, keeping a clean sheet when we need to. That kind of ability and like I say, the fitness that we've got, I think that really served as well. I think perhaps in a normal season we perhaps wouldn't have come quite as high. I think the run that we had after the lockdown was phenomenal, and I don't know if we'd reproduce that under slightly different conditions, but overall fantastic. You get that little bit of extra money for finishing in the top half, a bit kudos. Second top half finishing 3 seasons. So yeah, for me, unexpected, a really good result, a really fantastic season again.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely share some of those views. Richard, do you mirror that expectation each year? I mean, Tom's not on his own. There are a lot of fans who would be delighted to finish 17th every season, and that is enough. And I think there's a difference between what your minimum expectation is and where realistically you want to push on as a club. But where do you sit in that bracket? Do you sit on the 17th and that's enough and happy to do that every season, or are you wanting us to push for 10th each year?
I think it's a good question. I'm very torn about this all the time. Obviously, from a realistic point of view, I think survival for us is key every year, especially when you see teams like Villa, for example, spend so much money and only just survive on the last day of the season. But at the same time, you want to see your club progressing, as you referred to before, Natalie. It's our fifth straight season in the Premier League. Tom said we've had 2 seasons out of 3 in the top half. We should be looking to kick on and want to become a top half Premier League club. And I'm sure that's, deep down what the club wants to do. And I know we're going to get on transfers later, but surely, we've come 10th in the Premier League. We're established ourselves more and more. Isn't it the time to kind of maybe look at kicking on a little bit and having those ambitions, not just to be happy to come 17th every year? Yeah, so I think that's where I sit on the fence really. So my head says 17th, but I really want us to start kicking on and acting like a Premier
Mm.
League club more.
Yeah, I don't disagree with either of you there. I think I'd probably sit in between the middle of you both. I think that the minimum we need to aim for each season is survival. And if we do have a difficult season with one thing or another, if we have injuries or we have a tough season, we only finish 17th, then that's better than finishing 18th, obviously. So that's a really good thing. But once we get to that level, we need to be pushing on and we need to be seeing what we can do in terms of survival, and just getting a bit higher up the table. I think I mentioned this last summer, and I'm still very much of this view. I tend to not look at positions, albeit I agree with you, Richard, that kudos of finishing the top half and top 10 is actually really nice when you look at that. But I've been saying for a while now that I wanted us to stop just focusing on getting to 40 points and safety. I wanted us to be realistically looking at 50 points as a minimum benchmark for each season. Like we need to get to 50, and that will be anything from 10th to, well, look at the European season. Actually, that got us 7th. It just goes to show that last year that the league was a bit harder because it only got us 10th to the same number of points. But I want to see us. The minimum we aim for is that 50 points mark, which should see us somewhere between, well, around the middle of the table and pretty safe. And of course, what that then does is enable us the freedom to have a good cup run. Again, we've got Sheffield United this week in the Carabao Cup, which is going to be a non-entity for both sides, I'm sure of it. And Daesh himself this week has said that it's just not as important as the Premier League, and I don't think anybody's even trying to pretend that anymore. But if we did get some safety, we could really have a go at some cups and try and get some competition and get some, maybe even get to Wembley. That would be awesome. Sticking with you, Richard, Tom did touch on this in his opening point about that phenomenal run that we had once Project Restart opened again in the last 9 games of the season. We didn't need this, of course, because actually, if you look at the table, we were already safe by the time the games commenced again for that City game. We could have lost all 9 and still survive. Oh, actually, was that the case? Because do we not play some of the relegated? Oh, actually, that might not be fully accurate because we might have gifted teams below us. I might have just given you a really false start there, guys. But we were pretty much safe. We had enough points on the board. And out of the 9 games we played, we won 4, drew 3, including a draw at Anfield, which was incredible, and only lost 2 games. How impressed were you, Richard, with the attitude and the technical ability of that team when they came back in those ridiculously strange circumstances?
Oh, just absolutely massively impressed. You had a lot of pride watching the team. As you referred to before, Natalie, there's been past seasons where we've got to 40 points and we just really got on the beach. No, but this season we had a massive fight. We had a lot of desire to come as high as that we could. And with all the injuries that was going on, contract situations, I think it would have been easy for the players to down tools a little bit, but they did it exactly the opposite. And amid all the frustration of the manager, they really showed that they was playing for him. And some of the performances that we put in were fantastic. West Ham away, Crystal Palace away, especially Palace with such a depleted squad. Peter's playing on the right wing. Kept a clean sheet, showed the spirit that we have got within the team. And for me, Liverpool away was just an absolute highlight. Pope, absolutely unbelievable that game. Made a few saves in the first half that really kept us in it. And then Jay scored a great goal, and we could have even won it with Gudmundsson at the end. I think that Liverpool game, just a real shame that there was no fans in the stadium to really enjoy it. And I think it's quite nice that knowing that we're the only team, to stop Liverpool from winning at Anfield last season. So, that's a little good one you can give on the Liverpool fans if you ever say Burnley are very good.
Yeah, when we get all the rubbish from Liverpool fans, we can just say, how was that unbeaten? How was that every win at home record or whatever they describe all season? We can give them some grief for that. But a couple of things that I'm just picking up on from there, Richard, and Tom, I'll come to you on this. There are a couple of players especially who are absolute unsung heroes for me at the back end of that season. As Richard pointed out, Eric Peters having to play on the left side of midfield at one point was just absolute hero status confirmed. And of course, Josh Brownhill, who even ended up, he was played in the centre, he was in the right at times, he was all over the place as well. And these are just players who either have been pushed down to squad players and very much emergency cover, or from Brownhill's perspective, brand new players who've been brought in obviously as a future asset for the club, but have just been thrown in and essentially, to me, I think Brownhill's, well, number one, I think he's replaced Hendrick, but I also think Cork might be in a little bit of trouble when he becomes fit. Do you kind of agree with that? Was there anybody else who, particularly in those 9 games, you were impressed with?
Yeah, 2 good picks there. Brownhill's definitely the standout for me. I don't think he would have been expecting to play as much as he did. Quite often happens with our new signings. They'll have to kick the heels a bit before they get the chance in the team. That was certainly the case before the lockdown, but he really took his chance and grabbed it with both hands. He looked like he'd been playing in the team his whole life, like you say. He seems to know what job he's in the team to do. The similar kind of job to Hendrick, pressing, running about, that bit of quality on the ball, pick a pass through the midfield. Really, really impressed with him. So really looking forward to seeing what he's going to be like next season. And I agree with you. I think he's a really good foil for Westwood. If we can get Johan fit and playing most games on the right hand side, then to have a Brownhill Westwood midfield will have a lot of energy, a lot of legs in there. And I think probably Brownhill's got that bit more of an attacking thrust than Cork and Westwood. So it'll be interesting to see how we shape up if we've got him in there instead of Cork. Peters as well, yeah, like you say, no fuss, exactly the kind of player you want as a squad player. Cheap, obviously, that's the number one criterion when it comes to squad play. But,
why say you that, Tom?
But yeah, come in, do a job, no fuss. He can be out for 6 weeks, then he can be asked to come in and play a completely different position, but he won't whinge. You'll just get on with it. And some really solid, consistent performances as well. So he's a really good asset for us. I think perhaps one player that I'd bring to mind as well, when you said about best performers in the lockdown, Rodriguez, I thought he had a really fantastic lockdown. He'd been a bit in and out of the team. Wood and Barnes, obviously, for a lot of the first half of the season, keeping him out. And then Vidra seemed to be the guy who was emerging onto the scene. But yeah, I can't think off the top of my head now, but at least 2 1-0 wins with Rodriguez scoring a big header. I thought he was fantastic in the lockdown as well. And I think Barnes is going to find it really hard to get back in the team as well. I think Wood and Rodriguez looks like a really good front two.
Yeah, definitely. Our slight crossover then in terms of coming in was literally my next question that I had on the agenda was, but what about Jay? Jay, for me, I agree with you. Tom had a phenomenal restart, and I genuinely think that for me, Wood and Jay are the first choice strikers. Now, I love Ashley Barnes, and of course, he will do a job, and he still has that particular style of play that we know and love and that we want to cause a nuisance to opposition defences. But, we've said this for a while now, we're trying to rebrand ourselves or improve the technical quality of the side. We don't want to just be known as, a great big bus that's parked in front of Nick Pope and just stopping people going in, and this direct football, this long ball that people throw at us all the time. We want to be demonstrating a little bit of flair, and I think players like Taylor, Brownhill was starting to show that, and Jay as well. I just think we've got some players in there who can really, and obviously we can't look at Dwight McNeil as well, who's our god with that. I just think it just adds up to just a little bit more entertainment. We do want to be entertained. We want to see some lovely football, and we want to enjoy what we're watching, as well as winning. So yeah, I completely agree. Tom, Jay was amazing. Richard, how did you feel then? Now the dust is settled, and of course this is now ongoing into next season as well. How do you feel about the absence from the grounds, the lack of live football? Are you finding it easy to get excited about the games? Do you look forward to it as much? Or I know I've seen a few fans who are just saying that when you take away the romance of the live, Saturday afternoon 3:00 football and seeing it with your friends and your routines and your pies at half time, it's taken away a little bit of the magic of the football. Did you manage to get enough of excitement for the last 9 games to really keep your appetite?
Yeah, listen, it's nowhere near as good as going to watch the games at the ground. It's not just when you go watching your club, it's not just the 90 minutes at the stadium. For me, it's about going with your family, and all that around it. But yeah, of course, I was still excited for it personally. Really excited for us to get going on Sunday. Obviously, we've had the first round of fixtures, if you will, this weekend. So it was quite nice to watch the other teams in a way, see who's looking strong, who's looking quite weak, and it makes you feel, ready for this weekend's game. Of course, wouldn't it be great, Leicester away, to be going down there for the first game of the season, but it is what it is. It's better than having no football at all. We're in unprecedented times, but I think it will make it all the more special when we do get to go back to the stadium, whenever that is. Hopefully, it'll be sooner rather than later. But for sure, I'm definitely still excited for Sunday. Am I as excited as I would have been for a normal season start? Probably not. But that's not just to do with COVID reasons. There's other factors within the club that I do have frustrations with that have maybe dampened my excitement a little bit. But that's only a little bit, though.
Well, but I think before we move on to have a look at the start of the season and have a look through those hopes and expectations and actually start to look at the summer transfer window and what's been going on, I want to speak to you both about a rather hilarious little transfer. No, it's not even transfer poll. I think it's a summary questionnaire that we put out to all of our listeners to basically give a off-the-wall end of season awards ceremony, and we had a few categories in there, so I'm going to talk you through the results of these. It shouldn't take too long, but these are going to be the results of the No Nay Never Summer Questionnaire. So, question number one that we sent to our listeners was unsung hero of the season. Now, both of you, we've just touched on that very briefly with the last 9 games of the season, but this is, of course, the whole season now. It isn't just for the last 9 games. So, quick answer from both of you. Tom, your unsung hero.
Yeah, I touched on it before. I think I'd have to say Rodriguez. I think he was really good, really impressive.
Yeah, Richard?
Oh, tough one, unsung hero. I'd probably go Phil Bardsley. He looked like he was going to leave the club, ended up coming back and just a real solid performer. Even though it is a little bit frustrating that we've not got a right back in, yeah, I'm quite happy for him to be right back going into next season too. So yeah, Phil Bardsley.
Fine. Well, our listeners agreed with you, Richard, and Phil Bardsley, with 36.7% of the votes, got the unsung hero of the season. Very, very closely followed by Jay Rodriguez, though, who came just behind him on 33%. And in third place, Eric Peters with 24%. So, yes, our listeners agreed with you, Richard. Question number 2. Oh, producer Matt's put a load of play pictures at the end of the results. Okay, excuse me, listeners. I'm just going to go through a gallery of player pictures. Question number 2. Nick Pope's save of the season. And my goodness, there were quite a few of these to go through. He had a phenomenal season and should be England number 1. Gareth Southgate, I know you listen to the No Nay Never podcast. Get him in the nets. Richard, you first. Pope save of the season?
Not just because it was the best save, but I'm going to go for the penalty save versus Leicester. I think that was a big turning point in our season, really, and from that moment on, once Westwood scored, we really turned it around. So yeah, the penalty save versus Leicester.
Was that the Pratt one?
No, that was Vardy's save. I don't know if that was on the. I don't know if that was on the list, but that's just one that stuck in my head. I know we did a preview of some of the people you mentioned before, but I can't remember any of them saves. So it's been that long ago.
Wonderfully honest, Richard. I like it. Tom, do you have a Nick Pope save of the season?
I really like the Haller one because I think that was one that kind of really showcased his ability and just making himself big and just getting in the way. Like it was a tap in really in that West Ham game, and I remember watching it at the time and thinking, how has that just gone past the post? I knew he hadn't got a great record, Haller, but I didn't think he'd have missed that one. And then you saw it from the other angle, and it was a phenomenal reaction. So that's the one for me.
Definitely. And actually 5% of our listeners 5.71% of our listeners agreed with you, Tom. But the winner was Mo Salah away at Liverpool. That got it with 46.67% of the votes. Pratt, the Leicester save at home, was second place with 29.5%. And the return fixture, Mo Salah at home against Liverpool, got third place. So there you go. Lots to choose from with Nick Pope. And again, I've got a gallery of pictures. Oh my goodness, the Mo Salah home one. Nick Pope looks like he's Superman. Right, question number 3 in the end of season off the wall awards. Alternative awards, I think is probably a better description. Outrageous VAR decision, either for or against us. Tom, back to you.
You're making me angry just thinking about it now, especially thinking of the weekend. I've been thinking about it a lot. It's got to be the Chris Wood disallowed goal against Leicester. I didn't know what it was disallowed for at the time. I didn't know what it was disallowed for after watching it. And I'm thinking about John Moss refusing to walk over and look at the screen still rankles. So it's got to be that one for me.
Yeah, definitely. Richard?
Yeah, I was going to say that one, but absolutely madness that goal got disallowed. So I'll go for something different. Just the whole incident with Bournemouth that obviously went for us.
Yeah.
Adam Smith handballed it. They went up the other end and scored. Then they celebrated. VAR, no goal penalty. We ended up battering them in the second half, which is always quite funny against Bournemouth. So yeah, I'll go for all that VAR incident against Bournemouth in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would have really felt sorry for them if it wasn't Eddie Howe. Regular listeners know my view on Eddie Howe. So, how we laughed. Actually, I shouldn't laugh because that'll be us at some point in the future, I'm sure. But yeah, it was. I know Tom actually disagrees with me on this because he's going to miss the guaranteed 6 points in the season. But I was quite happy to see Eddie Howe go bye-bye. Well, overwhelmingly, our listeners agreed with you, and with 76.9% of the votes, the Wood trip against Leicester was the most ridiculous VAR decision. The rest of the votes were very miles behind. So I think second place with only 10% of the votes was Wesley's offside against Villa, and the whole Smith handball and Bournemouth debacle came in third at 8.65. So yeah, our listeners are very much on point with our panel this evening. And again, pictures. Oh God, Tom, if you could see what I could see now, you can see the trip against Leicester game. That made you even more angry. Question number 4 then. I like this one. This was Matt's idea, producer Matt. Torquay's anti-football brackets biggest SHIT house moment of the season. Now, this is obviously in the absence of our regular anti-footballer, Ashley Barnes, who normally isn't a contender for this one this season and is our resident winder-upper of opposition. But Torquay very much took the mantra this season and went for it. Richard, do you have a particular favourite of Torquay's slight house moments? I'm going to say the word.
This was a great category. I've got to go for the one where he absolutely flattened Ryan Fraser. It was a great end.
Yeah, it
Really went through the bat of him, flattened him. And then when I think you've seen some of Ryan Fraser's antics recently, not playing for Bournemouth and then, coming defending himself, being quite arrogant, I think it made it even more sweeter. So yeah, Taki on Fraser.
And Tom?
I've got a couple. The one where he shouts in Tara Ming's ear where he's lying crumpled on the floor is a good one. I think you should show that clip to Gareth Southgate. I might make him think twice. But my favourite one for me, I think, is when he nutmegged Richarlison. And the reason I picked that one is because I noticed Richarlison responded to that image on Twitter the other day by posting a load of photos of him celebrating goals against us from 3 years ago. And the fact that needled Richarlison that much, even 6 months on, is what wins that one for me. Fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah, he's definitely endeared himself to many of our fans as Torquay this season. Well, all of those were actually mentioned, but again, with quite a big majority, which is one that you didn't mention, was the Zaha ball throw, which was just hilarious and ended up being a gif on Twitter for ages, and it was just hilarious. Just look on his face with just to give it him and then just chunks it away. It's absolutely brilliant. Second place was that Tyrone Mings one, Richard, so that came in at 26.53%, and the Richarlison nutmeg would you get third place actually, Tom? So that was in at 9.18. So we'll talk about this in the transfer section, but let's hope to God that young Tarky is with us next season and we can have a look at this category again next year. And long may he wind other people up. Is there another one? Oh gosh, this is the last one. Question number 5, are we on? Miss of the season. Now, this was probably quite a hard one actually, because I don't remember looking back this season on one where we wasted a lot of chances or missed a lot of chances. I actually feel that that's an area on the pitch we're really improving on. We've been guilty in previous seasons of being quite wasteful with passes and quite wasteful with chances. So whilst we might not have created as many as a lot of the teams in the division, I think our conversion rate was pretty good this season. But Richard, let's start with you first. Do you have a particular miss of the season that stands out?
Yeah, just one for me, the Rodriguez miss against Arsenal at home. So 0-0, about 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Cross come over, just it hit the bar, and it would have been brilliant to beat Arsenal, after so many failed attempts. And we really played well that game. So yeah, Rodriguez's miss against Arsenal.
Yeah, that was mine as well. Tom, what about you?
The one that stands out for me, 1-0 up against Sheffield United, 15 minutes to go.
Oh.
England's second best keeper, Dean Henderson, spilled the shot at the feet of McNeil and he drags it just past the post when it was easier to score. And maybe if we score that and we win that, maybe we would have kicked on and got Europe. So yeah, that one's still flashing before my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. I tell you, our panellists tonight have taken some talky shithouse pills. I think you're both getting very sassy tonight. I love it. Well, actually, the one that got a phenomenal amount of votes, actually, with 67.35%, was the Chris Wood miss at home to Wolves. Actually, that's the one that got most people's votes. The Rodriguez miss against Arsenal and the McNeil against Sheffield United were very, very close. Rodriguez with 16.3% in second place, and McNeil in third with 13.7%. So yeah, I think I think there'll be some of those that they won't want to look back on, will there? And actually, when I've scrolled through the gallery of misses, oh god, yeah, that J one. Oh, Jay. The final question then. This is a nice one to wrap it up with, actually. Producer Matt did well with this survey. Moment of the season. What was your favourite moment of last season?
I think for me, it was the J. Rodriguez volley at Old Trafford, or half volley, whatever you want to call it. But that shot smashing off the bar, that's one of those pure, unbridled joy football fan moments. Absolutely lost my head. After the results that we'd had at Old Trafford, being 2-0 up in the last 2 seasons, to actually get it over the line was fantastic. Burnley-born player doing it at Old Trafford. Yeah, brilliant. That was my moment of the season.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Oh, I'm getting all the feels. Richard, what was your moment of the season?
Yeah, I don't think you can look really past that Rodriguez one, but I'll just put another one. So yeah, just as I mentioned before, for me, by far the best game at Turf Moor for me this season was the Leicester one. So yeah, just the Pope penalty save, and then when Westwood scored that goal, I thought the atmosphere was brilliant that game, and it was just a real turning point in the season. And then I think the Wednesday the United game on the Wednesday was the game after the Leicester one. So 2 games that you might be thinking we're going to get 0 points from would have been really in a relegation battle. We ended up winning both of them. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a good week, wasn't it? Then it felt like everybody was back on the same page and that the team was doing well, and yeah, we really changed the focus of the team. So I would agree with you. And actually, both our listeners put those two as their top 2. The Rodriguez goal at Man United was the favourite with 37.37% of the vote, and the Pope penalty save against Leicester slightly behind it with 34.34%. But they did also mention, our listeners mentioned, a couple of other moments of the season which they categorised. Coming in third place was a good week, a good and a difficult week for poor Ben Mee. All around the restart again, he had to come out and face the media after the plane was flown over Manchester City. He gave an incredibly eloquent speech and really did our club proud in terms of representing the players and the views and just being a voice for change. I think he got a lot of respect for his comments there, so that was really good. And around that same time, it had come out where his wife had given birth to their second child, who was born prematurely, and they were obviously having some to deal with that at home, and having a brand new baby in a house is obviously an exciting but difficult time anyway. But to have one that's obviously needing a little bit of extra care, to have to stand up and do all of that while he was still dealing with things at home was impressive. But then he went on to score the winner at the Palace game. So I think a lot of our listeners are very much giving Ben Mee some credit for that period of his captaincy and defining that as a moment of the season. And then the last one, which I love, and I think this might be my favourite of the season actually, was Matty Vidra's goals, particularly the first one. And I'll never forget. And actually, this was your sister, Tom, actually, who first tweeted this, and I just loved it massively. He was so happy, and he just went and hugged everybody, and all of the bench, when he scored his first goal, all of the bench were on him. The players went up to him. The fans were going mad. You know, there've been them fans who've been chanting his name for ages when Dyche just didn't want to play him. And it just felt like a really nice moment. And the bit that your sister tweeted was the section of the interview when he was talking about celebrating with all my mates. And I was just like, oh, this is too much. And he was just incredibly happy. So that was probably mine of the season. So yeah, I mean, that's a good way to end last season, I think, and end our recap. I think it was a really good season, and it was a good season for many reasons, and it had its normal challenges that we're used to facing as a Premier League outfit, the challenges that Dyche is used to facing. We're entering into a new era now, I think. This is our 5th consecutive season in the Premier League. We've got unrest talks behind the club. We've got transfer debacles again. We've got reports in the press of how, Mike Gorlick and Sean Dyche are not even on speaking terms anymore. I don't really know how they know that, but there you go. We've got a little bit of anti-feeling against Burnley, and people just saying, oh, they're nothing without Dyche, they're just going to get relegated and go away, and people wanting us to get out of the Premier League, especially with teams like Leeds coming up, and the football purists want Leeds to be in the Premier League and not the likes of Burnley. So we're going through a new phase, and it's one that the fans and the management and the players and the board are going to have to address head on and see how we protect the brand of Burnley Football Club and protect our club, and just make sure that we're all together and we're all on the same page and we're not torn apart. So with that, we will go straight into, and I'll start with you, Tom. We'll start straight into the absolute merry-go-round, can't keep up with it, and just highly exciting summer transfer window that Burnley has gone through so far. So, Tom, let's start. Outgoings. We have lost 6 players so far, out of a side that, bearing in mind, couldn't fill a bench for the first game back after lockdown. We obviously lost Hendrick. He's gone to Newcastle on a 3-year deal. Oh, and he set up a goal and scored in his first game, which was just lovely. Joe Hart, we knew he was going to go anyway, but he's gone, currently without a club, but I think he is still looking. Lennon's gone, has gone abroad. Forgive me, listeners, I can't remember where Aaron Lennon's gone. Gibson, bizarrely, has now gone on loan to Norwich, not to Borough, and we expect that to become permanent after a while, depending on performance. Aidan O'Neill has come back from loan from his Australian outfit and then has gone back again. I think he's signed for them now. And forgive the terrible pronunciation, but we've lost a second keeper, being Legzdins. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. So, Tom, out of those, I think we're probably okay with losing most of them, apart from Hendrick and Gibson. Do you think that's a fair summary?
Yeah, I think he expected Hart to go. Yeah, I think he has got a club, by the way. I think he's at Tottenham now. So he's obviously his massive desire to play first team football.
Of course, I've completely forgotten about that.
He's obviously so keen to play first team football that he's gone to Spurs. So yeah, brilliant. So yeah, as I say, he's no loss. Lennon, he's going somewhere in Turkey. I couldn't tell you what team. He wasn't playing anyway. Yeah, I think you're right. Hendrick is the big miss. Obviously, like we've said, we've got Brownhill to replace him, but then it's like, who do you replace Brownhill, because we needed another midfielder? So that's a body that we've lost, and obviously we paid 10 million for him and he's gone on a free, so it's not great business financially either. I don't think on the pitch he's a massive loss. I would have kept him myself, but I'm not devastated that he's gone from a playing point of view. But yeah, from a squad point of view, a financial point of view, he needs to be replaced. Gibson, I think Gibson, he might as well have left already. And I think in spirit, he's long since gone. Obviously, we know his heart lives in Middlesbrough. I noticed he was on the bench on Saturday for Norwich. What a shame that was. But yeah, hopefully he can get a few games there. I'm very much rooting for Norwich to get promoted this season, because then they're obligated to take him off our hands. So fingers crossed they can do us a favour there.
Say that again, sorry, Tom. What's that? I missed that. So if Norwich are obligated to take him off our hands, if what?
Yeah, so there's a clause in his loan deal that means if they get promotion, then they have to buy him.
Okay.
I think Leeds had a similar one. They had that striker, Augustin. They when they got promoted, they had to buy him for 15 million, even though he never played for them. So yeah, I think that's what I read. That's the same with Gibson. So I had no strong feelings about who got promoted. Now I want Norwich to go up very much.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, no, I completely agree with those. Richard, focusing then on the Hendrick one. I mean, Hendrick's had a rough time at Burnley, and I still maintain to this day that he should have left with more of a hero status than he did. He really put it in for us, and the fans hated him, but the vast majority of the time, the fans didn't hate him. A lot of the fans didn't have an awful lot of patience for him, and he got a lot of grief. But the vast majority of the time, it was having to play out of position. He was in and out of the side. He was never really settled. It seems crazy to me that the deal wasn't done because Hendrick wanted 3 years, and the board wouldn't commit to 3 years for essentially somebody who's going to be a squad player and is going to be on the bench. Do you agree with Tom? Would you have fought more to keep Hendrick, or do you think actually it's probably fine that he's gone?
Hendrick's a bit of an enigma, isn't he, with people? Going back to playing out of position, I think he played right midfield because he wasn't, in my opinion anyway, good enough to play in central midfield. One thing I'll say about Hendrick is at times he was very frustrating, give the ball away cheaply, but he gave absolutely 100% every single game. And you can't really knock someone who was doing that. And I think before lockdown, he was starting to have a run of games in that right midfield, and I think he was starting to really get into it and play well. For me, it seems just really bizarre that Dyche wanted him to stay. The board, to me, I think Hendrick would have stayed if the right offer was on the table. I can't imagine Hendrick would have gone and demanded massive amounts of money per week. And looking at how hard it is to replace him now and how much he's going to cost us, it just seems a bizarre decision that we've not kept him. I think if you've got our strongest midfield and Goodmanson's fit, he probably doesn't start in the team. But as the season gets on, injuries come. He's just a reliable player, and Dyche knows what he's going to get off him. He's going to work really hard. And then you see, playing for Newcastle, he's always got that moment in quality where he can produce a really good goal. It's a shame he probably doesn't do it enough. But yeah, that's my stance on him, really. In terms of what Tom was saying, on the pitch, I wouldn't say it's a massive loss. I don't think it's, we didn't see, like when Hendrick didn't play for us, post-lockdown, it didn't make a massive difference. But from a financial point of view, it was poor business. And looking now how hard it is for us to replace him, it seems a real strange one that the board kind of didn't budge a bit more and give him a little bit more money or give him a slightly extended contract, especially because you could clearly tell Dyche really wanted him.
Yeah, definitely.
See how annoyed Dyche was when Hendrick didn't get offered that contract. So it's just such a massive risk on loads of different points for the board just to let Hendrick's contract run down on a free when they're so frugal with money normally.
Yeah, no, definitely, and also the whole Gibson situation as well. And we'll come on to this in a moment. I think one of the complaints about the recruitment again is down to the financial impact. And you think, well, you've not half wasted some money. You know what I mean? It's like for a club that's supposed to be so tight on the books, and every deal has to be right, and we have to stick within a very rigid financial structure at the club. And then you think, well, you do make some stupid mistakes, and you do waste some money. So, but never mind. Richard, sticking with you, we haven't really got much to talk about in terms of incomings. We have signed a third goalkeeper, so we are now back up to 3 keepers with Nick Pope, Bailey Peacock Farrell, who's been playing really well actually international level, we're told, for Northern Ireland, is it? So he's probably one to look out for, and I think Leeds fans are still saying he's going to be a really great keeper. But we've signed 27-year-old Will Will Norris from Wolves on a 3-year deal, so he's going to be third choice keeper behind those two. So we have expanded our goalkeeping. We don't have 5 anymore, but we have 3, so that's fine. And whilst it's not a new signing, I am quite encouraged by this, Richard, in the promotion, I guess, to the first team ranks of Jimmy Dunn, the centre half, who's come through the youth team and is now very much pictured. He's got a squad number, and he does now appear on the first team squad, and he's been getting some games pre-season as well, and I think people are very much highlighting his performances, particularly against Preston North End, that were impressive. Irrespective of where we go this season and what happens with Tarkett, it's nice to see a youth player starting to come up the ranks, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about him, obviously, and I think as well, Bobby Thomas just played centre half. I think he's a 19-year-old lad from Liverpool who they think's highly rated. I don't know. I'm torn on this Dunn one because he went on loan. He had a couple of loan spells at Sunderland and Fleetwood in League One, and they certainly didn't rave about him at all. But obviously, that could be for a number of different factors. You've seen it at Sunderland, just from watching the documentary. It's absolute chaos up there. In my opinion, we're still short of a centre half. Kevin Long comes in and does a good job, but I think he should be your 4th choice centre half, the one who plays not as many games in the season. Say Tarky goes off injured on Saturday and you've got Jimmy Dunn and Kevin Long at centre half. I think we look really, really weak there. We had to let Gibson go, even though it's unfortunate because of the circumstances. We signed 50, again, you're looking at a business point of view, 15 million from a player. We've hardly got anything from him and he's been shipped out on loan. So yeah, I don't know enough about him to really make a judgment, but for me, he's the next in line to be centre half, and Kevin Long starting on Saturday shows that we're not in a good position at centre half, even though it's encouraged. I'm more encouraged about Bobby Thomas coming through, who I've heard a lot about, but obviously he's not ready yet.
Yeah, still very young, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So, well, I guess while we talk about the defence, we may as well address the horrible elephant in the room, Tom, and the rumours that have been plaguing us the entire summer of Tarkett going. This kind of came about not necessarily from bids, but from an article that an interview that Tarkett gave in the Times. Was it in the Telegraph or was it in the Guardian? One of the two, where he basically vocalised his frustration of just being completely alienated from the England side, and quite rightly as well, and basically expressing his desire to play club football at the highest level, European Champions League if he wants to, and cementing himself in that England side. It was clear to everybody who read that article that Jeff definitely meant that, given that he's not getting picked for England while he's at Burnley, and we're obviously not at European level, that meant that his time at Burnley was probably coming to an end. Now, Tom, I don't think he did it in a snaky way. I certainly wasn't angry at him for the interview. I think he got his point across very well. And we kind of always knew that we wouldn't be able to keep hold of him forever. That said, neither West Ham nor Leicester appear to be wanting to meet our release clause of 50 million for him. So I'm going to put 2 questions to you. On one hand, we don't want to lose him because he's a great player. But on the second hand, when are we ever going to get an opportunity financially to get £50 million for a player? What camp do you sit in?
Yeah, it's really tricky, isn't it? Because the other thing that goes into the mix is that he's only got 2 years left on his contract. So if we keep him for another year now, he doesn't sound like he wants to sign a new deal. You're not going to get anything like 50 million for him when he's got a year left on his contract next summer. But on the other hand, for Tarkowski, he's 27 now, 28, so he's going to be coming up to 30 at the end of that contract. He's only going to have one big contract left in him at that point, so it might be better for him now to leave rather than sitting and running it down another 12 months. So you can see why he's thinking the way he is. I don't think it's just about money. I'm sure he's right in what he's saying about that he wants to play European football, and obviously he's more than good enough to be in the England team, and you have to think that maybe it's the club that he plays for that's holding him back a little bit. So I think from the club's point of view, I think it would be a big blow to sell him in the situation that we're in, because it doesn't look as if we were to sell him that we'd have a replacement lined up, and he'd be a big miss, especially because we are already weak at centre half. So you wouldn't want to bring with all due respect to Long, I think he did really well at the end of last season as well. I think he could have been another one in the unsung heroes section, actually. But I don't think he's anywhere near as good as Tarkowski to play a 38-game Premier League, excuse me, Premier League season. So you'd have to be bringing in a replacement, and you'd have to be doing it very quickly. And with the glacial pace that our transfer activity moves at, I wouldn't be confident in us doing that. So you'd have to say, if West Ham or Leicester come to us with a £40 million check, brilliant, cash that. But is that better than the £100 million that we'll get if we keep Tarkowski and we stay up comfortably?
No.
It's not. So it's a really difficult decision from that point of view. I'd like to think that maybe they've got a deal lined up, maybe for someone like Worrell at Nottingham Forest, whereby if we do sell him, if West Ham or Leicester do cough the money up, and I can't see him going to West Ham because he doesn't want to play in the Championship next year. That's not going to help his England ambitions. So let's say if Leicester do cough the money up, and they should. I mean, bloody hell, they got 45 million for Chilwell, 80 million for Maguire. Stick your hands in your pocket.
Yeah, definitely.
If they do pay the money for Tarkowski, I would say probably £40 million on the proviso that we can get a replacement in quick shot before the window shuts. And if that's Worrell at Forest, Dyche seems to like him. I'd be happy with that. Then I think that's the best deal for all parties. But I don't think there's much to be gained from selling him in January, and I don't think there's much to be gained selling him for less than 40 million if we don't have a replacement lined up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with all of that, Tom. And I genuinely don't know where I sit with this. I don't know how I feel. It feels, in some respects, it feels almost negligent to let a player just wind his contract down who's you could potentially got 50 million for, when all we hear about from the club is that finances are tight and that we haven't got player transfer. And you think, well, you have that ability to do it. But then on the flip side, I also think, well, there's not a cat and ell's chance that board are going to spend 50 million on a squad. So actually, what's the point? We might as well keep him and stay up. I will be annoyed beyond words if he goes to somewhere like West Ham, because I just don't think, I think it's a backward step at the moment. I have no problem at all if he goes to a team like Leicester. I think that will massively further his career. I think he will play exceptionally well under Brendan Rodgers, and I think just the style of football that they play there, I think he'll learn so much and he'll develop so well in the final parts, and I think that will be enough to push him back into the England team, where I want him in there. I want him in the England squad. As devastated as I will be, if he goes to Leicester, and I think you're right, if he get a replacement in. Actually, I think the Dawson rumours are circulating again, aren't they? They always seem to come around. We have a very small bank of players that always get linked to us whenever there's a position free. So yeah, I'll be annoyed beyond words if he goes to somewhere for less than, I'm going to say 45. Actually, I don't even think 40 is enough for him. I think less than 45, and without a replacement, I think would be criminal. And I want that money invested in the squad. I think the board's got some serious answers to our questions if that money doesn't get reinvested. Richard, you must be hugely frustrated, as we all are, in the fact that the Premier League season's already started, albeit we had a free pass week 1, and we've still no sign of any incoming players. And in fact, the message coming out from Sean Dyche is that, well, there's no deals on the table anywhere, and and again, apparently the main difficulty is finance. Yet again, it is like bloody Groundhog's window. Every single window we hear this, and Dyche always talk. He gets asked directly why we're leaving things so late, and he gives the same woolly answers about, the players got to be the right fit, the numbers have got to crunch, it's a difficult market, we can't compete with other people, and I'm just so sick of hearing it. Did you two questions, Richard. Did you expect it to be any different this summer? And secondly, moving on to how we progress from here, is this a turning point for us now?
I didn't expect it to be any different in terms of, I knew money would be tight. Even though you do hope that it will be different, I'm really kind of trying to stay positive and stay rational by thinking, listen, there's been a pandemic. We've kind of not brought money into the squad really in a while in terms of players' fees. But at the same time, something else that frustrates me is we've let a lot of players go who've been on big wages. We've lost Hendrick, we've lost Lennon, who were two midfielders. Clark's obviously got probably more of a serious ankle injury than people are saying. And we've not, to me, it's criminal that we're going to come on Sunday and we're not going to sign anyone. So we won't have signed a midfielder. and it's all well and good saying, Gudmundsson and Brady's fit. Gudmundsson's a good player. Brady, to me, I know Tom likes him and he might shout at me. Watched him for Ireland. Brady just looks way off the pace to be a Premier League footballer now. Hope I'm proven wrong. Yeah, it's massively frustrating. I know in the past we've not done too well with the loan market. I don't think we should just write that off completely. As has been mentioned a lot on social media and in the press, it seems you've got obviously the board, Mike, Rigg and Dyche, and it seems that there's disagreements there. A lot of people are blaming Mike Rigg, but at the end of the day, it's his job to identify targets. He's not the one who kind of has the final say. I might be wrong on that. I might be wrong. I don't really know enough about it. An obvious one for me is to dip into the foreign market more. Players are cheaper, they're more value for money. Wages are going to be cheaper. But obviously, I think that comes down to Dyche's reluctance a little bit to trust those types of players. You've even seen it with Vidra, even Defoe coming in the first season, he hardly played. We've got a month, I think there's a month left. I think 15th of October is when the actual domestic window finishes.
I think it's the 5th, actually, isn't it?
I thought it was a week later for domestic.
Have they pushed it back again?
Well, I think for foreign, it's then, but I think it's a week later. I might be wrong again, but whenever it is, there's a little bit of time left, but we really need to start doing something. We need a minimum of 3 players. And, said...
Well, that was going to be my next question, Richard. Where do we need, before you move on to that, where do we need cover? Where do we need?
Well, we definitely need a midfielder. For me, we need 2 midfielders. We need another winger and another central midfielder. I don't expect we'll sign 2 midfielders. We'll probably sign someone similar in the ilk of Brownhill, who could maybe kind of cover both positions. We obviously need a centre-back. We've got young lads there in reserve now. Ben Mee's got an injury. Hopefully it's not soon, but that could be another... You know what Dyche and his injuries are like. They can take longer than anything to come back. So, yeah, to me, we need 2 midfielders. We need a central defender. And we obviously need a right-back because we've got Bardsley, even though we can do a job, but his age, and we've got Lowton, who for me is not good enough anymore. Again, he'll give his absolute heart and his soul to the club. So we do need 4 players at a minimum, but I honestly can't see us getting more than 2. It's just so frustrating. We've been in the Premier League now. Like I said, it's our 5th year. I know there's other clubs who's got massive billionaire owners banking them, and Garlic, he's not got that wealth. But at the same time, surely we can go out there and push it a little bit, to get players in, or to be a little bit more creative and be a little bit more open-minded. I've seen Conor Gallagher's going on loan to West Brom. I watched him on loan for Swansea and Charlton a bit last season. He's a really, really good player. He's a good attitude. He'd work hard. But Dyche doesn't seem, maybe he's gone off loans, especially since what happened with Drinkwater last season.
Yeah.
Listen, I'll keep the faith as I always do. I like to be an optimist. I think we will sign a couple of players, but who knows of the quality that they'll be. I don't imagine us signing anybody for big money that's really going to improve the starting 11.
No, but then we do say that it's very difficult, Tom, isn't it? Because we say this every season, and this isn't the first transfer window that we've had this debacle. But we do seem to find these gems, and Dyche does have this incredible ability to get the best out of his players. I think that's worrying me more than anything is I think the starting 11 and the players that we have got in the side they're all fine and they're all good players. But you just go on to that, you look at the squad, and it is so small now, and we've been relatively lucky in some of the seasons that we've stayed up that we haven't had injury problems, but we are starting the season without Ben Mee, without Ashley Barnes, without Jack Cork. They are 3 players that not so long ago were key players for us, and I don't think that we've got some positions that those places are improved, particularly up front now, and obviously Brownhill's doing a good job for Cork, but in defence that losing Ben Mee leaves us horribly exposed, as Richard said. If I'm going to literally address this head on, if we don't improve and we don't bring at least 2 decent players in before this window closes, are we in serious trouble and serious danger of relegation this year?
I think it would depend on what injuries we got and who got them. So, for example, if we got a couple of injuries up front, I think we're pretty well stocked in that area. I don't think we'd be that unsettled. If you've got an injury at fullback, we've got 2 of each there. If you've got an injury out wide, you've got players you can slot in there. I think the big losses will be Pope. I mean, like you say, Peacock Farrell's played well for Northern Ireland, but is he ready for the Prem? He's never played a Premier League game. Tarkowski, obviously, will be a massive miss. And McNeil as well. I think he'd be hard to replace because, as you say, the other wingers aren't really that fit or aren't consistent enough that we can't rely on 30 games out of Goodmanson or Brady. So if we got injuries to key players, I think we will be struggling. I'm not pessimistic enough to think that we won't get 2 or 3 bodies in before the end of the transfer window. And I think we only need 2 or 3 bodies. I think in terms of worries about relegation, you've got to remember how we finished last season. You've got to remember the teams that we finished comfortably above. Are you going to get 6 or 7 of them who have improved enough to go above us this season? We were miles above West Ham. They were absolutely rubbish on the first day of the season. We'll finish above them comfortably. I'm pretty confident, even if they get 2 or 3 in. Crystal Palace, they haven't particularly strengthened. I think we'll finish above them. West Brom and Fulham look like fodder coming up already. I don't think we'll struggle to finish above them. Brighton, I don't think we'll struggle to finish above them. There's 4 or 5 teams that you look at and think we are better than them. And I think unless you do get key long-term injuries to those players, I don't think we're in trouble of a relegation battle this season. I think the problem that you have is if we continue to not invest, then you're in the situation where, when we sold Michael Keane, we had Tarkowski stepping in off the conveyor belt. If we sell Tarkowski in the summer, who's stepping in? Nobody. So they need to get those foundations in place now. They need to buy a few more Taylors, Tarkowskis, the Popes, the kind of players that we bought in. And Daesh is saying it's getting harder and harder to buy them for small amounts of money. It is, of course. I'm not expecting us to get an England keeper for £1 million. But what we should be looking at doing, for me, is we should be looking at someone like Bogle, who Sheffield United have just signed, a young lad to fit in at right back. Then when Barza goes at the end of the season, or you sell Loughton, you've got someone who can step up and fit in there. I think that's what they bought Brownhill for, and he's gone in a bit earlier than they expected. But obviously that's turned out to be a really good bit of business, and they got him on the team. That's what they need to be looking at doing for me. They need to be getting 2 or 3 in like that. I don't think the starting 11 needs a massive amount of work. I think if we bought nobody for the starting 11 in this summer, we'd still stay up comfortably. And as I say, that's the target for us every season, realistically speaking. I know it'd be lovely to kick on and finish top half again. I'm not particularly bothered. If we stay up, we've had a good season for me. And I don't think we need to buy anyone for the starting 11 to do that. But what really worries me is if we don't put a bit of money down now, and I'm not talking 20 million, I'm talking £10 million players like Brownhill, like Taylor. If we don't put some money down now for right back, for midfield, for out wide, like Richard says, in the summer we're going to have a big problem, and we can't sign nobody on that basis. And we are going to have to put some money down for somebody. That said, I am confident we will do it. I'm confident we'll pull it out before the end of the window. But if we don't, I'd be worried about relegation maybe a year down the line, especially if we get the situation where Daesh might be gone in a year and it's looking more and more likely.
Excellent summary. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Can I just add something that we really need to address as well? And I know it was tweeted that Dice is confident on it. We've got so many key players and squad players out of contract next season. Westwood, Cork, just 2 off the top of my head. We really need to get those players tied down in deals. We can't have a situation where a Hendrick goes for free. So Tom was saying we need to 100% agree. We need to get young players in to complement what we've got. But if then players that we've got here in our starting 11 don't sign new contracts, then we're in even more trouble. So I think that's something that is also key and really needs to be addressed as soon as possible.
Yeah, you're both absolutely right. Well, I think I'm gonna finish it off there because we've ended up talking a lot about some of the sections in the early parts of the podcast, and I don't want this to run massively over an hour. But what I just want to close off, I want from both of you, just very basic expectations of the 3 limbs this season. So what's your basic? Keep it brief. What's your expectation for Premier League? What's your expectation for the League Cup? What's your expectation from the FA Cup? And Richard, we'll start with you just to give Tom a bit of a breather.
So for Thursday's prediction?
Yes. Not necessarily a prediction, but what your hopes are. What your hopes and expectations.
Listen, we want a good cup run, don't we? We've been starved of that for a while. I think we'll play a reasonably strong team because we've got no other option. I can't really see, like you were saying before, for me, it's a perfect, the last thing you want is Tarky getting injured on Thursday. So it's an ideal situation. Jimmy Dunn comes in, maybe a Josh Benson plays in central midfield, some of your more experienced younger players. Yeah, I've got no idea what the score will be. Absolutely no. I don't know what Sheffield United is, but yeah, fingers crossed for a good cup run. But what I would like to see from Thursday is some of the younger lads get a game who have probably played quite well in pre-season, and for no key players to get injured.
Yeah. What about longer term then? Very quickly, Richard. What are your you obviously you've covered cup runs, so we're going to do that. What's your hopes for the Premier League?
As Tom was saying, first and foremost, you have got to be realistic with everything that's going on. If we stay up, it is a successful season. I think we've got enough, to stay, to come mid-table again. As Tom was alluding to before, we can't forget, amidst all the frustrations about the transfer window, we've got some very, very good players who a lot of Premier League teams, maybe below the top six or some in the top six, would definitely have in their starting 11 and in their team. We've got, for me, the best, the top three manager in the league, the players, they're going to give absolutely everything. So that still gives me a lot of optimism for the season. If I said now a position, I'll go with 13th.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Tom, obviously we'll finish off with you then. I don't think we probably need to cover the Premier League. I think you covered that eloquently enough in your last segment. So I guess just a final thing for you. What are your hopes for the Cups for this season?
Yeah, I think a lot's going to depend FA Cup wise on where we are in the league in January and what we do squad wise. So I think the League Cup, I've written that off already. I don't think we're going to put much of a team out for that, and I don't think we really care if we win or not. So enjoy paying tenner for that on Thursday, everybody. For the for the FA Cup, I'd like to think that if we're in a reasonable position, if we are sort of comfortably mid-table in January, it is something that we look at and kick on in, especially if we've got 2 or 3 bodies that can play. What I worry about is I don't know if Dyche really instills them with the real motivation, even if we do put a strong team out in those games. So it'll be nice to maybe get a couple of easy draws, kind of scrape through rounds 3 and 4 without too many problems, and then look around and see, actually, we're okay in the league. Let's give this a good go. So I'll be an optimist and hope that's the scenario that plays out. Excellent.
Well, that is all we have time for this week. It's ended up being a little bit longer than I think we expected, but there's been quite a lot to talk about. So that is it. That is our summary of last season, our look ahead to next season, and it just feels nice to be back. It feels nice to be back in some regular formal podcasts rather than a bit of an ad hoc situation we had going on coming out of lockdown during the summer. So with that in mind, both myself and Dave Statman Roberts will be back with a preview show at the weekend, ready for Leicester on Sunday. So do keep an eye out for that. I think we've got a slightly different format this season, albeit I'm yet to find out what Dave has in store. So that's going to be exciting. It might be a little chaotic on Friday, I think, because I don't really know what my script's going to be yet. Dave will write it. But yeah, we hope to be back next week to look ahead at hopefully a win in the next round of the Cup against Sheffield United, and hopefully 3 points on the board against Leicester. That would be a lovely start to the season, and you never know, we might have a few incoming players to talk about. If you have any comments, questions, anything that you want to see from the podcast this season, any feedback, any features you want us to look at, then drop us an email at podcast@nonanever.net or tweet us at @nonanever, and we will be happy to take your questions and your suggestions. Thanks as ever go to producer Matt for knitting this together, especially after quite a long break, and putting out the show. Thanks, Matt. Thanks to band Joyce for the use of music again this season without charge. Thanks very much. And thank you as ever to not just my panellists tonight, Tom and Richard, but the whole No Nay Never team. There's a whole team behind us who put together this podcast, and you will hear from them in the next coming weeks as we all go on the show. So thanks to all of you. But finally, again, coming into season 7, thank you to you, the listener, for sticking with us after all these years, for downloading and listening to this episode. Your support is very much appreciated, and we would not be here without you. We will be back next week, and in the meantime, enjoy the start of the season. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time.